See me right out of the sunset on your colored TV screen. Out for all that I can get, if you know what I mean. Tradesman to the left of me, tradesman to the right. Ain't got no gun, ain't got no knife. Don't you start no fight, 'cause I'm TNT. I'm dynamite. TNT. And I'll win the fight. TNT. I'm a power load. TNT. Watch me explode. Yeah, there we go.
Marc,
all right.
Craigmhor Construction is back in the house. We are in the new house. Jim, it's good to be back over the holiday break. Everybody's been sending me messages going, where are the new shows, man? I got nothing to listen to. I go, guys.
Just tell everybody that you're in one room.
Yes.
Marc's in another room.
No, you're in Toronto. I'm in Oakville. He's in Hamilton. That's what we're going to tell people. We're all being safe. We're all staying away from each other because it is serious out there. But it was a nice little break.
Good little break.
A lot of stuff happened over the holidays.
Got our own cannoli box.
Marc was kind enough to bring some cannolis, which are amazing, from Monastery.
Monastery Bakery in Oakville.
Oakville. And they are tasty, man. So they are tasty. So we are doing a very early morning podcast, so there's no vino.
No.
I feel bad about
Maybe
it.
later. But that's you got to bring the vino, man.
I was going to bring mimosas, but
No, we'll start doing. We'll do the downtown brown kind of podcast late in the middle of the night or something like that. But so we are back. So we have Marc returning to us, and what are we going to talk about today? We want to talk about.
Well, I've actually been reaching out to WSIB. I've been actually getting reached out by. I'm going to call them agencies.
Oh, wow. You're going to bring up a lot of letters, huh?
Oh, yeah.
Are you going to bring up a lot of letters?
Yeah, and then not a lot of letters. I'm just going to
Are we going to get into a lot of heat here?
No.
No,
No,
okay.
we're not.
We're going to get into a lot of truth.
Well, what fun is that then?
We might get into some. And then I think what I really want to focus on is stigmas. And
stigmas in construction. I do like that.
Yeah, and some remarketing that I think needs to happen when it comes to trades in the schools.
I got a little flack for a Manny Monday I did recently. I don't know if you saw it there, Jim, where I was talking about the young females that are dismissing contractors because they drive a van or a pickup truck, and they want them to be driving a much more luxurious vehicle. Oh. And there was a couple of ladies that were offended by what I had to share. Majority of everybody that was chiming in on that podcast or that post was on track. They agreed with me. And these guys in their 20s and 30s are getting dismissed by these ladies because we are contractors. That's one stigma, but we'll talk more about it.
So,
in my time, is blue-collar workers.
And it's still blue-collar workers. It is. And it's still a very clean living as we know it. Sometimes
way
more than
above average.
I know.
So let's talk about that then.
Yeah, let's get into that, man.
So here's what I got. So I want you to think about something, okay? You see a guy walking down the street, business suit, probably about $500 to $1,000 on a custom, okay? I started pricing out some work clothing just recently.
Right. I like where this. Like where this is going.
So let's look at this. Okay, so Black Ladder and Snickers are two brand names in the industry. Okay, you wear that's like the Versace,
and they're not cheap.
And so
they're
here
not
it is.
cheap.
Ticket price $190 to $250 for the pants.
For a pair of pants.
For a pair of pants. Okay. You talk about shirts. If you want a good working shirt, I think Pro Timberline is selling them for like $60-$70. You go in, you start looking at boots that are anywhere from $250 to $300. You put insoles in them, that's another $250, $300. What are we looking at, guys? $1,000.
We're $1,000 looking tradesperson.
$1,000. I'm showing up to your house. You have your nice suit on. I have my trades clothes on, and you go, this guy's a dirty construction worker that doesn't make any money. Then let's go a little bit farther.
But you know what? I'm okay with that.
I'm okay with that too.
You're okay with somebody saying that?
You know what? Say what you want. I mean, I'm so old now, it doesn't matter what they tell me. So
I love that.
I mean, it's just say what you want to say. I go home to where I live, and I'm not saying I live in anything fantastic, but we do okay. And a lot of times these guys that show up in their $2,000 suits, you know when you leave their house that you're doing far better than they are. They just got attitude.
I think it's more about there is ignorance in unfamiliarity. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So
Yes.
people don't know what Black Ladder looks like except for trades guys. People don't know what Snickers looks like except for trades guys. Same for Carhartt, Dakota, all these brands, right? We know the brands. We know what they cost, but nobody else does. They just look at the thin set on your jeans or the mud on your boots and they go, that guy might be a little bit less than. And I think that what I would implore people to do, I think that's the right word, is look into these brands. Understand that when your tradesman shows up with the right tools, with the right gear, that is an investment he's not only making in his company, but himself.
Yeah.
How many times have you worn the wrong shoes to the wrong event? Everybody knows that.
I'll say two things about the workwear, because I'm particularly a Snickers guy, right? One thing is they're extremely comfortable. Flexibility,
I don't know what
comfortable.
it's like to wear a chocolate bar.
That was over the holiday break. It was a Toblerone, wasn't it? No, but they're extremely comfortable. And second thing, I don't have to dry clean them at all.
Nope.
So these guys spending $2,000 on suits and dress shirts and all kinds of stuff, they have to dry clean that stuff, which is what?
Right. I mean, it costs a ton. But wait a second. But for that part of the world of those guys in their $2,000 suits, there's nothing wrong with that either.
No.
That's what they do.
No. Yeah.
And in order to be in that business,
It's the attitude part.
So
it's the attitude part.
So I think what you're saying, Jim, if I can sort of go off of that point, is maybe the way a businessman is viewed in a really nice suit, maybe you should be looking at tradesmen in the same way. You should be looking at these guys and going, this is what this guy wears to work. Even though what we wear to work looks different, we're still human.
Right.
You know what? I do it too. When I see tradespeople come on a job site and they got track pants.
See ya.
Yeah. Track pants are the one thing that drives me frigging crazy. For one thing, the drawstrings are dangerous. Second thing, you don't look like a professional.
I think it
And
also,
boots that aren't done up.
Oh, it drives me crazy, man.
I think also I'm a young guy climbing through the ranks, and I can tell you that like my wardrobe has changed as I've continued to go up in clientele. When I show up, like I even apologize to my clients sometimes and say, I'm actually showing up in civilian clothes today, because they might call me and say, hey, listen, I need you to take a look at this. And I'll be like, well, I'm in my gear. I'm in civilian clothes, so you might not recognize me, but I'll come out and I'll see it because I want to be service driven, right? But I still think that needs to happen where it's like, if you see a guy with a tool belt and a hard hat and the high vis with the pants and the boots, you have to look at that and go, the same amount of money that has been spent on that rig is the same amount of money as some guy who's a stock trader or a banker walking down the street in Toronto.
They're both professionals.
They're both professionals. They both want to look good. They both want to be comfortable. Okay. They're probably very respectable. The other thing too is, and then not to mention the tools that we have in the back. I got probably on average, don't break into my truck, $3,000 worth of tools in the back of my truck at all times.
But in the beginning, you probably started, as I did, with the least expensive tools just to get started. And then they started falling apart. And then you started doing your homework. And then you gravitated to a specific brand. And then you went with one of the brands. And we all know that all the brands have great tools.
Yep.
They all have amazing tools. They all have some bad tools as well. But it's whatever brand works for you. But you spent that money. Even over the weekend, I was actually considering finally purchasing a Bosch battery miter, 8.5. Because I was like, you know what? It's kind of convenient, batteries and everything like that. I want to go that route. You spend that money on the tools as well.
There's another stigma with construction workers where it's kind of like, I posted something the other day. The message was, there's vices across every single industry, not just construction workers. And these days, I would say that there's probably a little bit less than what people are expecting in terms of vices. I have a family. I have kids. We have dreams. We have hopes. We have cars we want to buy and stuff like that. We can't go partying all weekend. I mean, that might be for like a younger generation or something like that, but I can't go out, gamble, drink, all that type of stuff like all weekend and then show up for work on Monday and be respectful. And some do. But the thing is, that's across all aspects of industry. That's not just construction. I think
it's any job.
It's any job.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, when you look at comedy sketches, animated skits.
They
memes.
totally pull.
We are the bad guy. We are the bad. We're the guy standing at the scaffold, hollering down at the woman. They're not thinking, oh my God, these guys are producing multi-million-dollar homes and dealing with clients that are highly professional, that work in very elite circles. And they go, oh yeah, I'd like you to meet Marc. And they know you by your first name and you have a relationship and stuff like that. They're like, that could never happen with a construction worker.
But see, I think it's changed.
I think
For the better.
Yeah.
100%. When I was first starting, it was like that. And, construction workers, they were always yelling at chicks and everything.
Does that go on? I have yet to see that myself.
It happens.
It happens.
It still happens, but I don't think it happens in the, the capacity that it happened.
The way it was.
The way it was. I think there is, finally, we're getting a little more classy, right?
We're gentle tradesmen.
We're cordial. We're good to people.
And here's why I think that. Probably late 90s, when all the shows started to come out, it actually started, I think, a movement. Everybody wanted to be a contractor. Everybody wanted to be a tradesman because, look at these guys on TV, they're becoming rock stars, they carry they got a tool belt on and a hammer. And I think that in the last 20 years, it's actually helped us. As much as we shit on the shows that are out there, because it really doesn't do much justice.
It doesn't do the industry justice.
But I think it's elevated what construction is about.
And I think like everything, again, adding to your point, Jim, is it's going to continue to get better. And I think that people need to sort of open their minds a little bit more. And when we start coming to their homes, by the way, your home is probably your number one returning investment for most people. Yeah. And we are the guys working on them.
Yeah.
Don't you think that we're going to try to show up as clean as possible? Because if you're a homeowner like myself, you have a lot of respect for another homeowner. And especially if I'm working on that.
Right. And you mentioned earlier that, you said, I showed up in my civvy clothes and everything else. I don't think that's not a bad thing. Like no. I think they should, because if I'm gonna go meet a client for the first time, I always try to set it up after dinner or something, so I don't have to go all covered in shit. Go dressed up so they can see another side of you. There's nothing wrong with that, right?
Oh, for sure.
No. So
I think the bottom line, and we've talked about it before. I think it's image is everything.
As long as the tradesperson's conscious of that image, they just don't want to slap them together and just go.
Right. Show up in a clean truck.
Yes. Well, maintain your truck on a weekly basis.
Maintain your truck. Like, don't show up in a thing that's all rusted out, the rat shit and everything else. Like, you have to invest. Maybe you got to start that way.
But that also goes to the guys who go a little too extreme, where they start putting pickup trucks and doing lifts on them and throwing on 36-inch wheels and all kinds of stuff. Like, that's a different story.
That's a different
don't
animal.
Show up with that, right? I was going to say,
you can blend your truck up a little.
A little bit, but it is still your work truck, and it's a functioning vehicle, so you have to still make it functional.
Money.
It makes
that's the thing is like I look at my clothes, I look at my tools, I look at my truck. Everybody knows that if you're a trades guy, chances are you're not leasing that thing, you're financing it because you bang the shit out of it, all right? The way you're also treated on a financial side is completely different than the guy who's swapping out his Beamer every couple of years because he hits the kilometers on it. So you're buying that thing out, you're buying your tools out, you're investing in yourself. All of that is going to make you money. We're looking at long game. When you mentioned about, guys having decals down the side of their car, that is making them money.
Yes.
That is almost as good as having a TFSA. Because if you have your number down the side and you get $2,000 for having decals down the side, you're paying for the decals. Yeah. So again, I think that the principles of construction are slightly changing to a more modernized look. And I think people need to start understanding that when they get a tradesman come into their front door, introducing themselves, being cordial, being nice and all this type of stuff, to sort of look at them as like, you know what, this guy is like a businessman in the sense where he's just trying to do exactly what I'm trying to do when I go to my job every day.
I do this now, and I'm sure you do this, Jim, is I review everything now. So once I finish a job, I review it. I actually have someone who puts the whole thing together, lets me know exactly where every penny went, how it was all laid out, and then I could actually just do a cost analysis on the job. I think all tradespeople should do that for everything they want to do for their business.
100%.
So if they want to buy a vehicle, because I was taught this by younger guys who spend $80,000 on a van. vans are $80,000 now. And then he actually justified it to me, and it made 100% clear to me. It makes me money. He looked at that 80 and he calculated, what's it going to take for me to do this year to use that as an asset, and I can make money with it. So when you walk on a job site or you meet new clients and you're wearing proper workwear and you look like a professional tradesperson, you spent that $200 on those pairs of pants or whatever, it makes you money. The image, your brand that you're creating, it makes you money. So if these tradespeople do a cost balance analysis of everything that they do that's associated to the business, they will quickly realize, I can purchase that tool, I can purchase that attire, I can purchase that van, and here's the reasons why.
I think it also helps when you do walk up and you've got that clothing on. As a client, I think I would go, you know what? This is good. I've
Sense of relief.
A sense of relief.
I've made the right decision.
I've made this guy, look at me. You may not know how much the stuff costs, but you know, presentable, and just the name, you know, even though the name doesn't register with you because you go to an office, but you're going to go, okay, that name, Block Lotta, that means something, right? And you tell by the material. So I think in not all cases, but as you say, it's getting better. I think as, you know, as the construction, you know, business grows and as the younger guys get in and as the public is younger now that we're dealing with, they get it and they see, okay, you know what? I hired the right guy. You know, he looks presentable. He looks like he's a real tradesman.
Yeah.
And a point of relation to like some of the listeners that aren't in the construction industry, when you look at a police officer, when you look at a paramedic, when you look at a fireman, you can honestly look at them and go, that guy probably makes about 80 to 100,000 a year based on just their uniform alone, just because of what they're wearing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, so just you know, connecting points where people will go, oh, hey, aha, you know, that type of stuff.
I know, Marc, that you're 32. You're
32, yeah.
32. So and Jim, you probably noticed as well. My last 3 clients that I've been dealing with have all been younger than me.
Yeah.
And I know
everybody's younger than me.
I wasn't going to go there, but I find it really fascinating that I'm having conversations with 30-somethings, early 40-somethings about $1 million rentals. That wasn't the case, I guess, when you were in your 30s and you were speaking to clients that were probably in their 40s and 50s, established.
Doing maybe $100,000 rental and
but that number's dropping now. So you're getting clients that are actually having communication with you about 6-figure, 7-figure projects, and they're in their 30s.
Yeah.
How does that feel for you, Marc? Like, how does that work?
Full honesty, sometimes when I see a younger client, I think, okay, what's my budget on this? I think it might be a little bit less because I kind of do a comparison of like, okay, you know, what are they making and stuff like that. I also try to, you know, do a couple like probing questions like, oh, what do you do?
For sure.
What is your husband?
Interview them as much as they're interviewing you. Yeah.
So I try to do all that. For me, I think it's great. I think anybody who's my age and buys a house, I think that's fantastic. I think you're stimulating the economy. Good for you. To me, it's kind of like, you guys are kind of coming at it from 2 different perspectives and you kind of have your ship. I'm kind of still going with the waves. You know what I mean? So as things continue to change, I'm adapting with it. And that's kind of the name of the game these days with the current situation we're in, right?
Yeah.
That kind of brings me to another point where, you know, there's a life cycle of a tradesman.
Oh, for sure.
You know, and it was really funny because I was kind of playing with this concept a little bit. When we're sitting here at the table, I feel like
6 feet apart.
6 feet apart. I feel like I'm like the beginning, Manny, you're like the middle, and Jim's like kind of like the end. And that's not a slight on your age. That's not a slight on your age.
Yeah,
but
whatever.
Get out.
Get out.
But like, I think that's another thing is like people think, again, like stigma and concepting of like a construction worker, they think you're going to be like a prize fighter. Like you start in your prime when you're young and then you keep fighting until one day you can't fight anymore. And that's again.
But what is that? What's causing that factor that you can't fight anymore? Is it a physical or is it a mental?
I don't think you're actually fighting. I don't think you're actually fighting. I think what you're doing is you're changing the way that you're going about things.
No, I meant more of it like, is it a toll? Is it a toll on you physically? Is it a toll on you mentally?
I think it's more of a, I haven't actually thought about that one.
Because I know
I'm gonna say it's a toll on you.
Yeah.
I think
especially with what you're doing.
Like,
Yeah.
I mean, the reason I respect Jim greatly is because you've had your fair share of stuff that has happened in this industry, and yet you still have a huge passion for this industry, a huge love for this industry. And I think the majority of young guys out there that even got wind of a tiny bit of what you've been through or you've dealt with bad or good clients or whatever, they would say, fuck it, I'm out of here. I can't deal with this. That's a toll that I don't want to deal with.
But I think that's also due to their short-sightedness in the industry.
1000%.
Because here's the thing. You start out as an apprentice, you start out as a helper, you start out as, some people would say like the donkey, where you're just shoveling and sweeping and doing all this.
We all have.
Then what happens is you start to get the trade, you start to evolve, you start to go through. But the thing is, people don't realize you're going up the trunk of the tree, but you're not blossoming yet. When you get to like...
I like that. I like that.
When you start to get like around...
Can I use that trademark?
Of course you can. Of course you can. As you get to sort of the blossoming point, the avenues you can take are like almost endless. This is the thing. See, people look at it like this again, and I'm going to go back into like sort of white collar business. All right. You start out as a teller, you move up, you get into mortgages, you get into this, and then you go into stocks, you go into, mortgage specialist, you start moving your way up, and then you eventually become like a CFO or accountant, and then so on and so forth. And you move through the ranks. Okay. People can see a clear career path. Same with lawyers and stuff like that, clerking to this, to this, to this, boom, 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 boom. You can kind of see that laid out. And that's, education system and university saying, well, if you take this course, it'll lead to this, and lead to this, lead to this.
For sure.
What people don't talk about, though, is if you get your red seal, you can go take a construction management course and then go after one of these big guys out here, and you can start being a construction manager, managing somewhere.
Dude, you can go take a construction management course without the red seal.
But that's what I mean. But I'm saying if you have the combination of the two, you take those while you're young, and then when you get to go up your trunk and you start to bloom, it's a crazy world.
It's
a huge
asset. It's a
asset.
crazy world, and
yes.
it's a massive asset. You can maybe, if you're lucky enough, approach Jim and be like, hey, Jim, listen, I got this background, I have this background, and these are the two things, and I think I can help you. And you can sell yourself. You're kind of like your own entity at that point. And I feel like people don't think you can actually get there in the trades. I think what they believe is you're just going to be
swinging a hammer
for the rest of your life until your back gives out, and then you're dead and you just die at the site, But
your back gives out for a variety of other reasons that you can deal with. But I mean, I know, Jim, you brought this up before, and I just recently saw it on a post circulating on Instagram. There's going to be an influx of people that don't know shit about construction coming into construction because of what's been going on in the world.
Yeah.
Because we have been thriving. The industry has been working really well. What do you guys think about... There we go. Marc's got a grin on his face.
It's just...
It's good and bad.
It's good and bad. Our education system needs to get back to what it was back in the 80s.
I wish it would. And we have to figure out how.
Okay.
There are some schools that still have shop.
But we need more schools.
We need more.
I've been actually thinking about this.
Okay.
And ever since
For
Jim,
32 years.
For 32 years, I've been thinking about this. No, ever since Jim mentioned, we got to get back into high schools. That really resonated with me for whatever reason. So I started doing some digging. I did some stats. Right now, if you look at StatsCan for jobs and who's employed, and you break it down into sectors. So the sectors are public, private, self-employed. In the last 4 years, private and self-employed has declined. Public has gone up. Private sector is about 11 million jobs in all of Ontario. Okay, there's about 14 million people. The private sector, the self-employed sector is about 273,000.
That's it?
Uh,
Yeah, that's it.
In
Ontario. Yeah. Now,
$250,000, huh?
yeah. So when you branch all that in together, okay, then there's in that private, you got your McDonald's, you got your Costco's, you got big guys, okay? With the construction industry, the way we make our money is we sort of go after guys who are working in maybe public sectors and other private sectors, and we take that and we get taxed on the dollars, and then the dollar kind of cycles. Every public sector employee is seen as sort of an expense when you start breaking it down into running the country as a business. The only way we're going to dig ourselves out of deficit and debt is by investing in private and self-employed industries. One of the highest yielding industries you can get into is construction. When I say private, that means private also includes the Starbucks barista, the second cup barista, the guy serving you at Harvey's, that type of stuff. If you get into construction, we're generally the higher yielding employees. We earn more. So we get taxed more. So we pay back more. You see? And the thing is, when construction is happening, it's not happening on an international level. I mean, we all hope for that, but it generally happens here in Ontario. So that's tax dollars getting traded on the soil, contributing to the economy. So from an economist standpoint, from an economist stance, don't you think it makes sense to maybe start investing just
Reinvest.
a little bit?
It does.
From the educational point where, Jim's sitting there going, I'm really scared for guys that don't know how to swing a hammer to start swinging a hammer. And not because I don't want them to make a living, but because I don't want them to hurt themselves and then become a burden on the system when they're just trying to provide for their family. I think that's where it really comes from. Don't you think, as a governing body, you should look at this industry and go, we got to get it back in high schools?
When was the last time the government actually actively spoke about this?
They
Never.
don't.
They don't. They never have.
Never does.
Nobody's bringing it to their attention.
It's not a talking
Like
point during elections.
I mean, you're the stat man now. Because I know at one time, renovation, new construction, pretty much ran half the economy in this country.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
That would have been the 80s,
I would say
right?
it would still stand true.
Yeah.
Yeah, for
sure.
This past year, for sure.
So again, looking at the the pandemic we're in and all this that's going on, what's going to pull us out of all this? Again, I think construction is going to.
I think it's going to be a very big driving force.
Again, build, like how many people does construction actually employ? Like,
No, we were talking, I think it's about
Tons.
1.7 million across
and
Canada.
Just going back to
1.2. So actually, I did the math on
It's
that.
1.2?
1.2. I think that's what you
So
said.
out of 38 million that we have right now in the
So
country.
ready for this? So then I broke that down even further. Okay.
We brought the stat man.
There's 383,000 construction jobs in Ontario. When your number,
So we have a quarter
we
of
have a
it.
quarter of it because we have 14 million people in Ontario, and there's 37 million across Canada.
We have a quarter of it just in Ontario.
Yes.
Wow.
Th-
I know
again-
we're big. Just don't talk about this.
Yeah, I know. But this is the thing, right? Like these are raw numbers. I'm not an economist. These are raw numbers. These are stats that you can look up. So when I'm taking that and I'm working my ratios, by the way, I'm a lowly construction worker. I'm just a mason.
do you ever get any work done?
The R&D in the middle of the night.
Listen, so when you're looking at that and you're saying, Manny, okay, we're going to lose a quarter of that. That means 50,000 gone from Ontario. That's 50,000.
That's the threat in the next decade.
That's 50,000 high-yielding jobs that are no longer paying tax on your soil and are retiring and taking from the government now and becoming self-sufficient. Now, by the way, everybody can be self-sufficient on the government. I don't care. That's not what I'm going after. I'm just looking at my industry right now and I'm saying, guys, from a dollars and cents perspective, if you were looking at a solution right in your face, don't you think now is the time to start investing in it?
Yeah.
Schools are closed. If you need to run your HVAC systems and upgrade your things, now is the time. They're not being run over. There are shops right now that are just rusting out that have high-end equipment in them, and they're just sitting there vacant.
But how's the public going to perceive that if all of a sudden the school board start allowing contractors to come in to do some upkeep on the business?
Honestly, I've worked in schools, and the way that they do is they have a COVID board.
Okay.
Just like everything, they have a plan.
So everyone's safe
So
about
everyone's safe in doing that. And also, by the way, they limit the amount of contractors that come in during the time. So what they'll do is they'll schedule HVAC guys that come in one day, then they'll schedule the trim guys that come in the next. They will never have those two guys interchanging.
As ballsy as this may sound, I'd actually love to get our prime minister on the show
Well, I'm going to be going after...
to ask these direct questions.
Well,
man.
I'm going to be emailing the premier. I've decided to do it because it's something that I believe in. That's kind of my calling. I love my business. I love my trade. I love everything I'm doing, and I never want to see it go away. And because of that, I'm looking at this right now, and I'm going, we have a solution. And even if it's not the whole solution, it's a part of it. It's a step in the right direction.
Am I fair to say this, that building construction is more of a collective issue instead of privatization businesses like the white collar is more of an individual?
I think what's happening, and this is a sad... Well, I actually want to get Jim's thoughts on this.
I don't know. I mean, I think well, how many times have I said now? I think we are so much stronger if
Together.
Sure, we're our sole proprietor, or you run a business and you.
But there's a brotherhood.
There's a brotherhood, and I think again, I think just being in this thing for over 45 years, there's never been a unity of construction where everybody's always fighting with each other, doing this, doing that. But now in the last 20 years, I mean, being a contractor has elevated, like we just talked about it, there's nothing wrong with being a contractor, especially if you're a good one, you make a great living, and some of us make, others, make an exceptional living, right? So nothing wrong with that. So I think the more we can work together, there's more than enough work out there for everybody to make a great living. Again, I keep continuing to stress that if we can somehow pull together, I'm not saying we form like this gigantic association.
That's not what we want to do.
But maybe it is. Maybe it is some kind of association for renovators, contractors, small businesses.
Yeah.
Not the Madamies of the world and stuff like that. Us guys.
Mm-hmm.
The small mom and pop shops.
We would have, and when I say, we do this, I'm not just talking Ontario. I'm talking, we just do it right from coast to coast. Canada wide. There's tons of us. We would have a bigger, far more powerful voice, for sure. I mean, that's it. That's exactly why we when we started Renovation Contractor, we wanted to be the voice of the industry, right?
And the round table.
And going forward on that, like, it kind of brings me back around to this concept of, I'm just going to call them agencies. Agencies go out, they market, they get a whole bunch of pros together, they put them on their list. You call as the homeowner and you go out and you're like, okay, we give you 3 quotes, and then you pick one, and then this guy shows up and does the work. Okay. That's great if you want to make a living that way, and that's fine. A lot of what people don't understand about agencies is that a lot of the onus falls on the homeowner. Mm-hmm. When they deal with you, like a Carrick Hall Homes or a Manny from Hardcore Renos or myself, Marc from Craigmhor Construction, we carry our own liability. We cover our own WSIB. Yeah. You don't have to worry about your due diligence. But a lot of people don't see that. I think that needs to be an education. The point that comes off of yours is the type of tradesman or pro, as they say, that it's creating. Because here's what happens, because I've called them and I've actually asked them how they work their thing, and they go, okay, here's what happens. We take your price, and we take 2 other guys, which might be cheaper, might not be, and we throw them all at the client. And then what happens is the client goes in and picks. Generally, it's the lowest one, because it's kind of a race to zero. The agency doesn't care because they're making their monthly thing. And then what happens is the guy who doesn't get the job, now when he goes in on the second one, he's going to lower his price even more. And then they're going to lower their price even more. And they're going to lower their price even more. And then it's a race to zero. Nobody wins except the agency who's collecting their monthly fees. What this does to a tradesman, though, is it turns this guy, who probably is really good at what he does and might have a real knack and future in it, but because he's racing with all these other guys that might do a little less, it creates this sort of tenacious animal that's just all about, push the other guys out of the way. I'm not working with anybody. Like, I'm going to just eat as much as I can. It creates a mentality where it's like, well, if you're not first, you're last.
Right.
And then what happens is it breaks that unity, that brotherhood, even sometimes that craft that you're trying to really achieve.
But not only that, I mean, it crushes you.
100%.
As a contractor, you said it earlier, like you finally just give up. Like, why am I going to work and making nothing?
Does it crush you because you have such a respect for the skill that you build a certain way, and now that you've been racing to the bottom there to get the lowest price?
I don't even know if that. I think it's just if you, right away, I would think and go, holy Christ, is this the business? I used to like doing this. I'm not going to do this anymore.
But I've always walked away from those jobs instead of shifting gears into a lesser quality job.
You have to. I was just talking.
Bring it up, man.
I was just talking to Joe Rosselli in Napa Valley.
What's up, Joe?
Hey, Joe, because you're going to be listening to this. And him and I have had a couple conversations, and he reached out to me, and I said, call me, and I'll just answer anything I can. And he's in the U.S. Like, he's in Napa Valley. He's young. He's like your age. He's like 30. He's starting out. He's got a little baby, and he's having a bit of a go. And we talked about marketing. I said, you sometimes, and then this was the the point I made across to him. He goes, sometimes I'm just not making enough money. I feel like I'm getting shafted. I said, it's up to you to get up away from the table and tell the client when they have asked you to drop your price, you just politely get up and say, you know what, then this job's not for me. I need that amount of money in order to do a very good job for you. Obviously, this one's not for me. Thanks very much. Get up and walk away from the table.
Yeah.
75% of the time, they're going to call you back. He texts me back. He goes, Jim, it was 4 hours later. I got the job.
But he was scared.
He was scared
about walking
shitless
away.
to walk away because he wanted the job.
And I think like where I think I'm a little bit closer to this, but I remember first starting out, I shot everything that moved.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is when
We
you
all
first
do that.
Exactly.
We all-
Everybody does that. But imagine you got involved with an animal that turns you into something where you're consistently racing to the bottom.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. And then you don't grow from that. You continuously beat yourself down, and then you have those conversations with yourself at night where you're sitting there, at 3 a.m. going, is this what it's all about? Is this what it's really about? And then what you're doing is it's not just about the person, it's about the spirit and the spirit of their industry and how they're going. And you're starting, but the thing is, that matters to a guy like me. That matters to a guy like you, Jim. That matters to a guy like
Who
you, Manny.
cares about the industry?
But that doesn't matter to an agency.
No.
And you know how there's
You're
been,
a number.
They have no skin in the game.
Exactly. So what I'm saying is, you know how there's been that support local? Support your local trades guys.
Yeah.
Start going out.
Not a single mention.
Start supporting your local trades guys. They're hurting just as much as you are. They could really use the work. Go out. Ask around. Go to a supplier. Say, hey, listen, do you know a guy that can do a little bit of drywall work, do a plumbing job, do this, do that? It's so simple. And it comes back to marketing, I think. It comes back
Well, it comes back to marketing, but also patience.
Yes.
You got to know when to hold them and know to get up and walk away. Right?
Marc's great for this. He will take, and he mentioned this in the first time that he was on the show. He will take the small jobs that a lot of brickies don't want. I don't want.
Nothing wrong with that.
There's nothing wrong, but we know at this table and everybody that's listening, you take those small jobs, it's going to turn into a big job one day.
Well, I don't know if it'll happen, but the guy that I just recently did that brickwork for you, he comes out to me and he's like, oh, that actually looks really good. I go, thanks. I said, first time doing it, so don't tell anyone. He goes, oh man. He goes, yeah. He goes, so do you guys also do...
Whatever.
That's
Do
exactly.
you also do this?
That's
While
exactly
while
it.
you're here.
While
Yeah,
you're here,
that's
do you guys do
exactly
this? Yeah. Okay. So maybe not right now, but we'll give you a call in the spring. Okay. Fantastic. And then who knows who that guy knows? Who knows who he's gonna know?
You never know.
But again, if I'm doing one-offs all the time, getting beaten up on price, and the brand I'm pushing out there is not reflecting the money I'm charging, and then also it creates a false set of standards too, because I'm thinking I can only make this much.
Yeah.
Like it's not helping.
But you're doing these smaller jobs, and you tell me if I'm wrong. But the thing is, and I'm never wrong. You tell me if I'm
He
wrong.
knows the answer before he asks.
You're not doing it to build. You're doing it to build relationships.
100%.
Because what's going to happen to that client? They are going to speak about you positively, man. I know a guy. He's amazing, great guy. Took care of this little thing for me, and then all of a sudden they'll talk to a friend who's doing a big job. And they'll reference
And
you.
it evolves.
And evolves. That's exactly it.
But it comes down to marketing too, like you said.
Yes.
Like
So-
if you want to, and then, Joe and I were talking a little bit about that too. And I said, do you have signage? And he said, no, not really. So now he's working on, because he wants to, I said, you want to rule kind of your hood, right?
Yeah.
Your area, if you can. I think if you can have a classy little sign.
Yes.
Even before you start the job, say, whatever here it is, get it out there more and more and more. It's like, pizza.
Yeah.
It's just going to be
It'll
drilled
stick in their
into,
head.
into your head, right?
So it's really funny that we're bringing up marketing, because bringing it back to sort of the education, I also feel like there's a lackluster of marketing when it comes to trade school.
Guys
And it
don't
comes
think
to
that
trades.
they don't think the effort is worth it, which is wrong.
Imagine this imaginary world, okay? Just come with a journey. Come on a journey with me, okay? All right. Imagine this. Imagine you saw on someone's application when they're sitting down trying to figure out what they're going to do for the rest of their life, and it goes Western, Laurier, Mac, this trade school. Isn't that a cool concept?
Why is,
What is that?
why is the trade school at the end of the list?
Because best for last, Jim.
The
Best
most
for last.
recent, the most recent one.
But
So that person didn't get any satisfaction out of the other choices that they made.
No, but the thing is, it's an option. It's an option. It's not being made an option right now. It's a high yielding, high returning, high taxation.
Okay, but who's to blame for that? The parents.
Parents, government, authority
Well,
figures.
first I'm going to say the parents.
Parents, for sure. Because
I
spoken.
have girls, so, sure they could have got in the trades, but they didn't. And, and I wanted to make sure they got where they wanted to go. So they went to university and they did what they wanted to do. And both of them renovate their homes. And, but, they're not in the business. But I think parents can't, especially if your kid just doesn't want to go to university, you can't beat them up for it.
No.
I mean, him or her. Just gotta say, okay, let's look over here at a trade school. Nothing wrong with being a tradesperson. You're going to make a fantastic living. Away you go. I mean, I've said it before. I say it, when I've gone and spoke at, high schools and everything else. I said, look, guys, you're the new doctors and lawyers of the future.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to make that hourly wage one day.
When I was in trade school, when I was at the OMTC, I had to seek those guys out.
Right.
It wasn't like, when you're applying for colleges, there's also you could go to the local 27, the local 183 trade school for masonry or carpentry.
Yeah.
You can also go to the OMTC for masonry. You can go to these schools for this. No, I had to actually go and look for them. It was not being made available to me.
So all through your research, nobody was just volunteering to help out?
No. And then
I believe it. That's the scary thing.
And then when I'm at the OMTC, they had a school from the east end of Toronto come in with 20 students, and they kind of just look at what you're doing. They don't really do much. They just kind of describe, okay, these are the trades, blah, 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 blah. What I'm saying, though, is only one school from the east end of Toronto did that. Why is it that, Iroquois Ridge in Oakville or White Oaks in Oakville
They don't do it.
aren't coming out here and seeing this and doing that and doing that, doing those things and seeing, how the trades work, going to the plumbing schools, going to the electrician schools. There's a skills competition in Ontario every year.
Every year.
And the thing is, who does the best in those things? The guys whose dads are tradesmen.
I believe it.
And the thing is, one of the reasons I got into the trade was because I knew about it coming up. Back in the day, and I think you attested to this too, Jim, they could pull you out of grade 12 and put you straight into a working program where you were earning. Yeah. And it's the same thing with the banks. They did the same thing. Okay, who here is good at accounting? This guy, top 5. Okay, come. These are the BMOs, the TDs, and the CIBC guys. Those guys are now executives.
So what high schools actually do that now?
None.
They don't.
They
There
don't.
isn't a single
Mine
one.
did.
Yeah.
Western Tech, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we had,
Well, are
and
we saying
we still had
Central
grade
Tech?
13 back then.
Central Tech still does, doesn't it?
Central Tech still has a shop, I think.
Have they gotten rid of it? I don't know yet.
Well, I know. I mean, Central Tech and Western Tech are pretty much were the same type of school.
Yeah.
And almost the same, amount of students. Like when I went, we were just shy of 3,000 students when I went. Now
That's
it's
a big
now
number.
It's like 1,200 bucks or
Yeah.
1,200 kids, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, we were, my trade anyways, HVAC, they sheet metal, local 30, boom, came over and said, okay, here, I want this guy, and this guy before they're finished.
Yeah.
And we had a job.
Scouting.
And
all it
why?
was.
But
Why can't you do that nowadays?
exactly.
I go back to your point, Jim, about I blame the parents. Most parents don't think being a tradesperson is a good enough career choice. First of all, they think it's a fallback job, and they think it's not a good enough career choice.
And that's another thing. Fallback. We're
Fallback
not
to
second
what?
choice. And I think that comes down to a little bit of the marketing, because when you're applying for
sure.
when you're applying for secondary education, a trade school does not even rate on that application. So the parents must go, "Oh, you want to pursue a trade?" It's again ignorance through unfamiliarity.
It's narrow-mindedness because
you know what?
Yeah.
There's always going to be tradesmen. No matter what.
Has to be.
Robots cannot do our job.
There'll be robots to maybe demo, and there might be prefab homes, but you still have to build them inside of a warehouse. You got to still crane them in. So you're still going to have tradespeople.
Yeah.
Way into another 100, 200,
I mean, look at,
300
we were
years.
talking earlier about trading, day trading, whatever. Now they got goddamn robots watching the algorithm, boom, 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 sell. Like,
because they work faster.
Switchbot.
they work faster,
The
right?
little switch bot.
I would love all these parents to actually, and I would encourage more tradespeople out there, because I'm in awe of seeing amazing framing. I'm in awe of seeing amazing brickwork. I'm in awe of seeing amazing HVAC work. When I see tradespeople do their work and their skill, you see those years, you see those educating years, you see the quality, and I encourage the parents to see.
You know
to
what?
pay
So
attention.
so there's the thing. So maybe there needs to be a thing for parents to come out, people like us, stand up there and tell them, look, there's nothing wrong with your kid doing this. This is where they're going to go, most likely, and educate them. Maybe they need the education.
And I think there's a good point in that. I think if you educate people, well, now you're not unfamiliar with that. Now you're not ignorant to that. Now you can actually formulate an opinion, and you can go, oh, you know what? That's actually not such a bad thing. And when you actually look at, again, numbers, an apprentice or a helper, literally in the union, you could just stay there your whole life. You make
a better living
you
than
make
most.
$60K.
Yes,
you
yeah.
make $60K. You have your benefits. You have your lira, and you go off into the sunset.
So I'm not a parent that I know of. Do they still do career day at schools? Do they?
No.
They don't do that anymore.
Show and tell.
Because my next
Bring your
question was,
cat.
do they bring, would a tradesperson come in? And I was just wondering, okay, because here's my dad, he's a doctor. Here's my dad, he's a lawyer. Here's my mom, whatever. But my question is, do they bring their tradesperson dad to talk about the trades?
Probably not.
Which is sad.
And you know what? Like when I was coming up in high school, they did that. And, and it was kind of like, I never saw, like you saw the firefighter dad, you saw the cop dad, you saw that.
The
But
heroes.
Nobody stood up there and was like, I knew the guy, and his dad was an electrician, and he was teaching him to be an electrician, and he's a good electrician now. He didn't bring his dad. He brought his mom.
And she does what?
Because he was ashamed.
Well, I don't know if that was necessarily it, but the mom was a school bus driver. It was just sort of like, but it was not
that's parenting. That's probably his friends or her friends. That's society in general, where my dad's not a cool enough person because he's a tradesperson.
And again, I think that comes down to stigma. It comes down to marketing.
Yes.
It comes down to not reinvesting in the imagery. How many times have you seen, the ad of like a college or university trying to, not take money from the industry, but try to create wealth through the industry, where it's like, here at so-and-so college, and it's two guys with white hard hats looking at drawings, pointing at a couple things, and then pointing up into the sky, right? That's not how it is.
No.
Maybe construction management to some extent, but even that. But
I had a phrase, Jim, that I was using earlier on in my marketing days, where I was like, I didn't go to Harvard, but I could build it.
I like that.
Which is true, right? And I see your point. And the thing is, how do we know internally that tradespeople, trades industry is very rewarding and very financially successful for a lot of individuals. But everybody else that's out of it, they don't think so. How do we make them think it?
So I call it my harpoon. And I think the harpoon to this is dollars and cents. The dollars and cents harpoon is a good harpoon. If you go and you start appealing to mass amounts of government and other people about dollars and cents and how this is actually going to be a solution, this is actually going to make money, this is actually going to build communities and build a better person, and go on and you sharpen that harpoon, and that's the one you use to go get the whale, I think that's the one. That's why stats make sense. Because if you can honestly show the government that 50% of what 51%, it doesn't even need to be 60, 51% of what you're spending is overspending on top. And all the high yielding jobs out of the construction industry are actually paying for those public sector jobs. And we're going to lose a quarter of that in the next 10 years.
Will they deal with it when it's lost?
That's when they deal. That's
when they deal with it. But the thing is, I'm not going to expect them to do that.
They can't. We have to.
We have to. And that's the thing is, these days, a lot of squeaky wheels get greased. So I think that we need to start being the squeaky wheel.
Isn't it a double-edged sword here? Because the thing is, we all know that when it comes to construction for public, tendering goes out there, there's always overages, and you get these massive companies that make 7-8 figures on these jobs, just for argument's sake, the LR, the crosstown, how it's delayed, but then overages and stuff like that. So is there a double-edged sword where the public starts to think those massive construction companies make way too much money because they got the job was canceled, and they were paid 75% of the job, but they never did the job? That's not fair. But in government, that happens all the time. We can't do that in the private. We can't do that in custom rentals because we wouldn't have any work at that point. But I mean, we were talking off mic before we started the show today. What if you have a side hustle? What if you're doing more? You're trying to do other things outside of your construction business just to build more equity in your life, and you start becoming so big where you roll in, like you said, you had that situation where you rolled in a Mercedes, and then you got that double look from the client saying, you drive a better car than I do. But if you're a smart contractor and you have a love for the industry and you've done well on your side and you've built and provided, why not show it off?
Well, exactly. And I mean, that's what I said to him. I said, can't you look at it another way?
Yeah.
That maybe I'm successful.
Yeah.
For a reason. Not because I'm shitty and charge, overcharge.
I still love this industry and I still love doing the work, but I'd like to roll in.
If I overcharged, I wouldn't get work.
So I think the all-encompassing theme then is pushing the alternative perspective.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's, let's not look at the tradesman as the dirty guy who I hired to do the dirty job, and he goes back and he parties it all away and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Let's not look at the truck with the decals on the side going, he can't afford another car. Da-da-da-da-da-da. Let's not look at the trade schools and be like, oh, that's just a backstop for guys that weren't good at school. Da-da-da. Like, let's start changing the perspective, because what's happening is, with the safety that's out there, with the type of clientele that's out there, and the way the trades are actually going in the materials, you have to be smart to work with some of these materials out here.
Yeah.
You can't just be slapping it in and hoping it's going to stick. You need an education. The construction worker of now is a lot different than what we've been portrayed for so many years. I think now is the time to start pushing that change, start pushing that perspective. And once that happens and gains momentum, I think that's when you'll start seeing people wake up and go, you know what? There's something here that we can sort of use and capitalize on. And I think that is what we need to sort of show the current government right now, whether or not it'll invoke change. But I think the momentum needs to stop doing, because I can tell you right now, it's dead. It's stopped. It's not. And the
It's
thing
not
is,
moving forward.
It's
It's
been
not.
dead. For years.
The thing is, with the young guys coming in, I'm excited to see what the next generation looks like and what they're going to build.
I'm a little nervous. I'm being honest. I'm just like, you're talking about Gen Z, because we're talking about after millennials.
Yeah.
Well, isn't Gen Z worse than millennials when it comes to working hard? And I'm not trying to dig at the millennials again. I'm just saying that I'm a little nervous because in social media and the way it is right now, when you're hearing about, Elon Musk, the richest man in the world, Bezos, the richest man in the world, and they're fighting between billions, and they're over 200 billion. They're talking about in the next 4 years, they're going to be the first trillionaire. And I'm like, these are just stupid numbers. But then you get this younger generation thinking, I'm going to design an app, and I don't care about being a millionaire. I want to be a billionaire. They're
still going to need really nice houses with really nice architectural features.
They will. They will. I agree with you.
They're still going to,
How many of those kids, though, are going to get into trades knowing that construction does have a cap, though? Are we fair to say where it can cap out?
Yeah. I mean, 70s and 80s, it did.
Okay.
Yeah, it did. And
your income per year, every trade can do so many jobs. If you expand, you have another team, so you can run 2 jobs, 3 jobs, 4 jobs. So your cap can still grow slightly.
Yeah.
But you're kind of capped out, like maybe let's say mid 6 figures. You know what I mean? If you're doing really, really well. But if you want to get into the 7 figures, I think you got to get into those government, public sector jobs.
Oh, yeah. I mean, those are. What stat man? What's the percentage of the population that makes over 100,000? Somebody told me it's still less than 5%.
Yeah, it's
I
a
believe
small
that.
number.
I believe
Is
that.
it?
It's a small number. It's definitely
We
hasn't
talking
grown.
Canada or Ontario? Ontario.
Honestly, I can tell you this: it hasn't grown.
No.
Over this last year.
No.
So I think that's
No.
fair to say.
No.
You know, and I think a lot of them actually were like Sunshine List. Like they released that with all the public sector workers that were making six figures and stuff
Really,
like that. Yeah, there was a lot of stuff. You know, I'll be honest, I'm a little scared when I started looking at the public sector numbers as opposed to the private and the self-employed, because anybody who has more math skills than I can look at those numbers and go, you need 4 self-employed companies, let's say 3, okay? And each one of those heads makes 30 grand a year when they start out, roughly, okay? Which is not bad. That is going to equal one $90,000 public service employee. Think about it.
Really?
That's the way it
We
works.
need 3 to keep one.
Exactly. You need those 3 to earn to pay this guy.
And
So-
we're still waiting for permits.
And so again, it's kind of like, but the thing is, those 3 guys are going to go down to 2, and they're not going to make more. And then eventually it's going to be 1. And what? There's going to be 4 over here. You're running a huge deficit.
It's going to be that way.
It's going to be that way. So that's why I'm saying now is a good time before the tide really turns. Get out in front of this thing. Start reinvesting in the high schools. Start reinvesting in the shop classes. Get the people with
Why not just start your own school? 100% trade school.
I've thought of that, but the bullshit that you'd have to go through.
That's,
and the
that's
legalities
exactly what
and-
happened.
Right.
So this is
Government would step in because they don't want you to do that.
So this is a thing that I've learned just in my industry, and this is something that I take to heart, is it's a lot easier to make enemies than allies, and I'd rather make an ally than an enemy. So if we're ever going to get ahead of this actual thing, we have to work with them. Even if you don't like them, even if you don't agree with them, you have to work with them.
That's where the collective idea comes from.
And that's the thing is right now, but this is the generation that we're in, and the collective I like being in this together. I like thinking that people have my back and going forward. But in the age of social media where everybody control and slam everybody, in the age of agencies where people are racing to that bottom, they're killing the collective. They're killing the brotherhood. And the thing is, one thing I will employ trades guys, if you're on Instagram, to do, if you think about you're going to drop a negative comment on someone's wall, just don't. Don't. Instead, find something positive and go after that. Because guess what? That guy's in it. You're in it. You're in the same industry. Like Jim said,
Nobody's perfect.
There's enough food out here for everybody to eat. Let's go eat. Let's go eat together. Let's be the collective.
Does that also
Okay,
go for
so
the guys on TV?
What's that?
Does that also go for the guys on TV?
Listen, if the guys on TV want to come out and they want to help and they actually want to swing, not a sledge,
Sure. Sure.
If they want to help, if you guys want to help, I'll take the help.
Sure.
I just spoke to an architect yesterday, Dan and I, and about another project, and they asked our background, and the client said, "Oh yeah, I remember Jim." And then Dan goes, "Yeah, I had a show." Da, 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 da. And the architect came right out. She goes, "Yeah, we had a friend that worked on your buddy's show." and he was a tradesman, and he came right out and said, he goes, "Fucking everything is made up,
Garbage.
Yep.
all scripted, everything else, right?"
And maybe what they're doing is they're taking good marketing opportunities from us, because then
Right.
people see that and then they think, oh, a bathroom only takes 30-minute episode. Oh, this, oh, that. We're trying to fix the education side of it so that eventually, again, we can water the trees so it blooms and it blossoms.
but that's what that was supposed to do
Yeah.
when I started.
Yeah.
And that was the only reason why I went
But
on.
it shifted into the
and
individual.
then it shifted 5 years later. It shifted
because it
into its
became
own
show
thing.
business. And by
Yeah.
the way, that I think is the life cycle of TV shows.
Yeah.
I think that's the life cycle. Just like we talked about the life cycle of a tradesman, that is the life cycle of those shows. And
What drives me crazy about these individuals, though, is that they have the platform. So
They got the platform.
So if
Yeah.
they wanted to, they can take their balls out, put it on the table, go to the networks and go, "This is the show that I want to make. I
See, they
want to
don't have to
inspire
worry about
tradespeople."
making money anymore.
Yes,
They've made
You
their
don't
money.
have to, but they don't. They just don't.
Because I was actually thinking about this yesterday. Like, out of all of them, And hats off to them. They've done well. Where would they be now without a show? What kind of a contractor would they be if they never had a show?
You want me to be honest?
I'm not asking the question. I'm just saying. I mean, I know where a couple of them would be. But
That's exactly it. And I also asked the same question, I think, in, I don't know how many podcasts back. It's like, if you had the opportunity, would you hire them to come on your job site, Jim? Would you hire them to work right beside you? The camera crew or their sub-trades or them, the person, would you get them standing beside you laying bricks, Marc? Would you get them standing beside you talking to a client? Me personally? No. I'd rather choose a tradesperson.
yeah.
I'd rather choose a person that I connect with, that I know, that I deal with, and I've seen their work. I'd rather deal with them instead of them.
Right.
That's just
I
me.
mean, you know what? Probably in their head, they know what should be done. I would just like to see their actual physical labor of it all, if they can actually
That's a difference.
do it.
We went off track here.
Off track. So where I wanted to say, we're talking about social media. Do you think the problem with construction now and with Instagram and everything else, maybe all of us that are on Instagram only worry about our numbers on Instagram?
Oh, for sure.
I think it's definitely
Like we don't really, like that's the reason we're doing it. You know, here, like I'm doing this. I mean,
If we do a
they're
post
making
and it gets
a-
hardly any kind of engagement or interaction, we're devastated for the day. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but I'm too old to be feeling that way, that if it's a bad post. I'd rather share something that's happened in my construction life than, and I don't even care about the numbers at that point.
Yeah.
So I actually, big shout out to Mike from Greenstone.
Yeah.
He put me onto this. And, I was posting like, I started posting like, one sentence like posts. That's how I started. And then I started doing videos of work that we were doing. And then, I started reading his posts and we sort of talked about, what you have to think about, again, what image you want to portray. Like your company is operating as a separate entity of you. What do you want to do? Do you want to go, hey, just laid these bricks, on to the next one? Like, is that all you want to say? Or do you want to go in? Do you want to start, talking about your actual experience and why this is good and all that other stuff? And so I actually started doing that. And I got more responses back, but now I'm creating content.
Yes.
I'm not posting. I'm creating content. And this is another layer as the, modern construction worker, as you will, has to think about. Especially if you're going to run a business, because the millennials and the Gen Zs that are coming up, as they, they're going to look on Instagram.
Yeah.
And here's just a little side note. Agencies, I asked them about some of the pictures that they do post, and they aren't from the pros. They aren't from people that they're from photo banks, and they put them on the post. And
Stock? Really? They're stock photography?
They're stock.
It's fake.
It's
That I
fake.
didn't even know.
Yeah. So I said, hey, that's a really nice room. Can your pros actually produce that? Now, they don't know who I am, but they're like, no, actually, like, and then they kind of give me a little bit of a runaround. I said, no. I'm asking, if I wanted that exact thing,
Can I get that?
Can your pros produce that? And they said, no, that's actually a stock photographer. And I go, from what photographer? And they go, this photographer. And I go, okay, from this photographer, is he on your payroll? And they said, no. And I said, okay. So what you're doing is, again, you're producing,
Misrepresenting.
you're misrepresenting it. So then when when somebody who doesn't know better thinks that's what they can produce, and then they go there and then they ask, and then it just, again, it waters down, race to zero, creates this thing.
Jim, back to your point about social media. Too many people are more concerned about how this is going to get reacted to benefit them instead of actually sharing information voluntarily.
Right.
Just like voluntarily, man. Like I've done my share of posts where I fucked up and I shared something and I was like, this is how it happened. I own it. And this is how I'm fixing it.
Yeah.
And it got received well. Other ones didn't get received well because everybody just wants the glitz and glam. And as long as the numbers keep on hitting right, and everybody, to your point, they want to photograph it perfectly. What they keep forgetting, and I've told this to so many people that have reached out to me about, give me some insights, some tips on how can I market myself, or what can I do on social media to get my numbers up and stuff like that. And I just say, be you. Yeah. Who you are on site is who you should be online.
Yeah.
And also another thing too, like, and I think we touched base on this a little bit with the last conversation we had, Jim. You hope to work as a contractor for maybe 5 good clients in the span of your life. Like, for example, I hope, to work for Jim, to work for you, I got room for 3 other guys, and then beyond that, I'm going to be double booking. Realistically, right. Like, I only have so much time during the year. So why do I need 10,000 followers?
It's ego.
That's
like,
my point.
It's
right?
ego.
It's like, I'm going to work for 5 guys max who are going to just continue to push me and feed me.
The one reason you need those 10,000 followers is because you have an obligation, and Jim's really good at this. You need to pass the knowledge forward.
100%.
You need to share what you've experienced with others.
And I think that, again, ties it all back into the education. That knowledge is not passing on to the next generation.
It's not. That's unfortunate.
That's something that we're seeing just sort of disappear. And we're trying to figure out, it was so prevalent with us when we were coming up. Why is that disappearing? Why is that turning into a shadow? And, how can we sort of bring it back to life? And why are the people that it would benefit most not investing in this?
These are great questions, man. I mean,
that's at the heart of it. And I think, add to that you have passions. Also, like, speaking about like round tables and stuff like that, we're lucky because we have a collective. We know each other, thank God. And, we're able to have these conversations. Trade shows aren't happening. World of Concrete isn't happening. All
trade
these
shows were losing their luster to begin with. When I went to the first trade show 10 years ago, it was a fountain of knowledge, man. Like, I had so many questions. I was there for 5 days. I was just absorbing everything. And then during the course of those 10 years, I went to 9 international shows, man, before everybody was jumping on the social media wagon and going there. And all they cared about when they got there was about group getting together and group photos and all that. And I'm like, dude, I'm not trying to be an ass or anything like that. I'm actually here to speak to certain people to educate. That's what I'm here for. And so the trade shows are losing it. The round table needs to come back. And I don't know if there's any other ways that we can do that. If it's like, we pimp out Jim to come onto Jim's job sites, other people, and go, listen, Jim, give this guy 2 cents because he's really desperate in need of how to solve this situation.
I think webinars are a thing nowadays just because of COVID and stuff like that. But eventually, once this passes, which it will, I think that there needs to be some sort of space or convention, even if it starts out small, just so people know they're not alone. Because I think that what happens again in these agencies, Race to Zero's lack of marketing, education, taking us out, us aging, and so on and so forth, you don't think you're going to make it because you don't think somebody else is going through the same stuff. But then luckily, you might meet like a mentor like you or Jim or Mike and stuff like that. And then they start sort of feeding you this knowledge, and it kind of kicks you back up. And like me as a young guy at 32, I got a lot of gas for like a lot of years. But the thing is, when I find somebody who has a good point of relation and also like a lot of knowledge that they share with me, that gasses me up more and I keep going. Yeah.
Julio works for me, so he's Modern Times Construction. The best question that he asked me, and he probably asked me this question all the time, like maybe 6 or 7 times during the day, he always preempts it just by saying, let me ask you a question. And I love hearing that. It could be around the corner, it could be I'm outside, it could be over a text. Let me ask you a question. I actually love that.
I think it's great.
I think that's amazing. And I think
that's why I enjoy guys like yourself reaching out and asking me stuff, and whether I have the answer or not, it helps. It helps me too. It gets me thinking. But again, if I can, give any advice or give help the situation, I mean, I love doing it. I mean, it's the least I can do for what the industry's been good for me, good to, for me, and it's been good to me. And and
it's also been good, I think, also to like a lot of people. But if you don't see it visually, like if the parents don't see, Jim Carrick of Carrick Hall Homes or Peter Gilligan of Mattamy or something like that, when you look at that guy, you go, there's no way that guy, is in construction, but Peter actually went to, electricians and stuff like that and learned.
Started somewhere.
Yeah.
He actually used to live up the street from me.
Really?
Yeah, in Oakville.
He's a CA, right?
Yeah. And what he did is he actually invested in the properties, went out and actually sat down with the trades guys, his electrician, said, "Why are you doing that?
Yeah.
Why are you doing that?" And he actually understood about it. So I have a lot of respect for this guy. But again, they see people at the end of their career. So I think the parents need to see what the life cycle looks like at the end so that they can stop thinking you're just going to be, like I said, like a prize fighter fighting the rest of your life.
See,
and then
there you go.
eventually
You
worn
can
out.
take it that one step further. Here you got a parent that is a business person. Your son, your daughter now doesn't want to go to university but wants to start a business in construction. Well, here's your chance to help your kid shine.
Yeah.
You're already a business person. Let them do construction, but now help them grow a business.
Yeah.
Which is a huge stumbling block for a lot of people.
I mean,
in
let's
construction.
face it. For me, I didn't understand business.
No.
I just dove into it and took the lumps and hallelujah. Still learning it, but trying to get parents involved. I mean, maybe that's another way to spin it and say, hey, you are a businessman, business person, whatever. Help your kid create a business. They don't want to go to the office.
Take your knowledge and apply it to construction now
help
and educate them.
grow a business.
Let me ask you both, how do you think tradespeople today, the 20s, the 30-year-olds, want to consume their knowledge? Do they want to read it either in a book? Do they want to read it online? Do they want to attend a webinar? Do they want to go to a trade show? Do they want to attend a roundtable? Do they want to have a one-on-one mentorship? How do you think it's going to resonate to them the best?
My experience so far is if they can't get it here, most of them, but then there's the chosen few that want to learn one-on-one.
Yeah.
And, put the phone away. And, okay, Jim, why are we doing this? Or our guys, Darren or Al or Rick, whoever's on our site, they'll ask, hey, why are you doing that? Show me. So
it goes back to the school. It goes back to a school.
It goes like on-the-job training,
Yeah.
apprenticeship training,
Yeah.
right?
But there's only so many
But
gyms.
there's only so many that I've found. Like, you're a perfect exception. You're hungry. You want to learn, And then when we had Jesse in here, you guys are rare, man.
Yeah.
Like it's to be this age, and then Jesse's only 25.
Yeah.
And he's hungry. He's he's got a framing outfit going on, and
It's the passion.
that's a passion, But if there was more like you, and maybe you're the guys that have to get your generation.
I think there are. I think we just don't know about them.
They're
and
staying
the
quiet
reason
right
why
now?
why we don't know about them is because the access isn't being granted to them. And
Maybe.
that's what it is. Because the thing is, Jesse, he's like, I'm not that good at school. I wasn't either until I took the framing program, and then I hit a 90 on that, and I graduated with honors. Why? Because I took the framing program, not because I took maths and sciences and physics. I learned that later. You know what I mean?
So going back to Mike, you reached out to Mike from Greenstone, who was
Yeah.
on the show. You heard the show, and then you reached out to him. You talked to him. You got along, and then he invited you to his site.
Yep.
You volunteered your time.
Yep.
And you started learning, and
Yep.
then you guys started working together.
Yeah.
Why is everybody not doing that or offering that on social media? Come on my job site. I've had so many guys reach out to me, and we've had coffees. They came by and they've come by and we talked and we had an espresso and we started talking and we had about an hour-long meeting right there on the job site. Why can't more of us do
So
that?
you know what? Here you go. We're thinking of round tables, this and that. Why don't we do? We should come up with. We have this platform here and everything else. Quarterly, we find a place somewhere. We rent the hall. Everybody's got to cough up whatever, $25, $50. To pay for the hall, pay for some food, and we just get in there and just start shooting the shit and figuring it out.
100%. And then you get a bunch of like-minded individuals together. I'm struggling with this. You're struggling with this. I'm not alone in this. I was thinking about going this route. I wouldn't go that route. I would talk to this guy, see
Yeah.
this guy. And the thing is, I think I'd see huge value in that. because I'm in the industry. But then what you do is, I would be very inclined if I knew somebody who was also a trades guy to be like, hey, like, why don't you come out to this and just talk to these guys and just see what it's all about? Grant you an audience and it costs you $25 and you get to shoot the shit with some like-minded individuals. I think that would be really, really good. And then it can grow to that sort of, not exponentially, but maybe it can grow to the, same kind of way that you were talking before, where now you have parents and kids. That would be another really good thing, is parents and kids one night come out, meet pros in the trade field and just, hear what they have to say about education, money making,
good idea.
This type of stuff. Because now what you do is you get to inspire the parents who actually might even be looking for a career in the trades, and you now inspire the kid because he's going, you know what? I never even thought about that. Instead of getting, people who are like, oh, if it's a backstop, I'll just go work for construction and that'll just kind of be my life. It's not a backstop industry. It's a very thriving industry. It has a lot of potential, to be good, not just for yourself and your community and stuff, but also your country. And going forward, there's a patriotic
it's the economy here,
and the economy, especially in
so what would you do, Jim? You bring what, 2 of each trade? 3?
I think the first one would just, let's see who's all coming, and sure, to be a free for all and everything else, but then we can kind of figure out the first night how the next time we do it, how do we break it down into different things, or people bring their questions, and we were only going to have so much time for different things, but it's a learning process like anything. So let's I think the first one is see how many show up. We'll find out what interest we have. We can all kind of figure it out. Then the next one will be another 3 months away, and then we just kind of organize
Still keep it intimate. Like, we don't get into thousands of people.
No. I think we start off like at 50, like we did the first round table, and just work from there.
I think you got your list from the TCL podcast. You could do like a reunion tour
for sure.
Like you could just reach out to guys who want to share their knowledge and like to talk, and then it's like, oh yeah, like I know that you mentioned I mentioned for me, and you're like, oh, I should talk to DGR for you and stuff like that. Like, I'd love to meet him. That type of
George.
Yeah.
Oh, you know George too? You spoke to him?
I just spoke to him yesterday.
Oh, okay.
So we just gave him, I just gave him a job, so hopefully he can do it.
He's doing that massive ICF job, stupid, and he's got another 40,000 square foot coming up.
I know, crazy.
Holy cow!
Crazy.
I think it's a family of 2.
Yeah. Yeah. No, he's funny.
No,
I've never met him.
Oh, he's super nice.
I've just
he's
met
super
him
nice. You'll get along, even though he's Portuguese. You'll get along. No, Jim and I have been talking about this forever, and we're just trying to figure out what's going on and how to do it. And obviously, we got to deal with the pandemic and how it's going to pull off. But I mean, as soon as we get the green light, we go.
Yeah,
let's just do this.
Yeah,
and start paying it forward, start educating, start sharing, and it's really like you said, Marc. It's just about introducing you to you. And you got a question? Ask them a question and learn. That's all it is.
It creates a really non-ego atmosphere. I think that's another thing that is really difficult to overcome in this day and age too, is when you're like a young 20-something-year-old and you're going to go ask somebody for help. You want to do it all yourself. I know I had to overcome that, especially with Mike too. Like, not everybody reaches out to Mike. For me to come out with my skill set and my background in education, and I was just like, you know what, I'm going to learn something from this guy, and to just sort of humble myself and continue to go forward. And that's an obstacle in itself, I think, for the younger generation too, is like, definitely come in, humble yourself. You're there to learn something. You're not there to make millions and millions of dollars. That'll come. It was put to me very, very simply by one of my mentors, Jeff over at Meadowbrook Construction. He said, Marc, one of the issues with sort of the generation coming up is they look at my house that I've worked for.
They want that now.
And they want that at 26.
Yeah,
and they don't realize what I had to do to get there.
Yeah.
And again, I've been very fortunate with the mentors. I've seeked them out. I've tapped them for information. I've asked them questions. I've developed myself around that. Anybody who had like a couple words for me here and there, like Jeff, and it just really changes your world. And I'm saying there are guys like me. There are guys like Jesse that are out there. They're just untapped potential. Yep. And all you have to do is we've lost the road. We need to recreate that access again. I think that's the best thing,
For sure.
It's an uphill battle, but We're in
But it doesn't have to be
construction.
it doesn't have to be an uphill battle.
With the government getting involved?
Well, with the government, that's always going to be an uphill battle. but I mean, building your company, building your brand you shouldn't look it's going uphill, but I don't think it needs to be a battle. It's.
I know, but you and Dan talked about it on the show where you guys were like, a partnership is better. So actually speaking to other tradespeople, the brotherhood, and getting answers and diving into what problems they may have come up. They may be very, very similar to the problems you're going through right now.
Yeah.
They might give you some insight on how to solve that you would never have thought if you were on your own.
Yeah.
So like you said, Marc, humble yourself. Get the ego out of the equation and ask the questions.
Yeah.
That's really important in construction. That's how we move forward.
Well, it's the only way you learn.
Yeah.
I mean, let's face it. Construction is a learning every day.
Every day.
Every day you're learning something. Whether you're looking at the same thing you've done, for 40 years, maybe that day, 40 years later, you're going to learn something. Oh, why didn't I do this 40 years ago?
So true, man.
Yeah.
Marc, you got a whole notebook there. Did we cover everything?
I got some questions for Jim.
Oh, there you go. Shoot them.
I got some questions for
The
Jim.
questions, not Jim.
Maybe a couple of years.
It's a figure of speech, Jim. It's a figure of speech. Shoot him. I guess like one of the questions as a young guy coming up, building a business and stuff like that, what job gave you the momentum to start going, okay, you know what, I'm ready to start taking on bigger jobs? And like, what did that feel? Do you remember what that felt like?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Like, were you scared? Were you excited?
Scared shitless.
Okay.
Scared shit. I actually told Joe this story, and he goes, no way. I go, yeah, this is my first job. I started out doing home improvements and all that kind of thing. So, aluminum work, this, that, windows. And then we were doing like some small home improvement on this house. The guy says, can you build me a 12 by 12 addition? I said, yeah. Didn't have a clue, but yeah, okay, sure. It was 20 grand. And I thought that 20 grand was like $20 million.
Do you know how refreshing it is for me to hear this? I don't think you
What are you
understand.
nervous at, Marc? 100 grand?
Sorry?
Are
me?
you
I get nervous up around, I'd say around 100 grand. Yeah. Anything above 100 grand, I start looking at going, okay, maybe I'm a little high here.
What is
or
it that you
something.
said, Jim? Like it's
20.
It's 20, it's 100, it's the same.
It's just more of.
Yeah.
That's it.
No, well,
But I know what you're saying. So yeah, that I shit myself. We got it done, learned a ton, didn't make a penny, but what an unbelievable learning experience. But once you hit that one, and I know that's your attitude. The next one will be okay. Well, now I can do 25,000. Not a problem.
Yeah.
But then it just goes. It goes.
Yeah.
I mean, we just priced out one that was right 2.6 million. There you go. And I said, Dan, you want to look at that? He goes, no, it's fine.
I had a client.
And I mean, I'm not saying that to say, hey, this is what we do, because there's other ones. I just did one yesterday for 150,000. It becomes a number. It'll become so easy because you'll know, and this all just comes with experience. You'll just know, okay, I'm at the right number because I know how long it took me to do this. Now I got 3 times that, so obviously it's this much more. It just becomes second nature.
Do you do that too? You calculate your numbers and all of a sudden still go backtrack thinking, wait a minute, am I right? Or am I on par?
When I do it's hilarious. I still old school. I'm a calculator.
I do that. I write down. I have a notebook for that.
I'm measuring off. I do all my square footages. And do everything.
Yep.
I got shit everywhere here.
You're making like little tick
Yeah,
notes.
I
And
got-
you're like,
I
oh
got-
fuck, where's
I got
that piece of
notes
paper?
everywhere.
Good.
When
I
Dan and
thought we were the only ones.
No,
When Dan and
I
I
do that
first
shit
started, he goes, well, just check Jim. Jim's got notes written everywhere on the drawings, everything.
They're actually benefiting from that because they go, oh fuck, where's that? And then you look at it and you go, oh, it's right here. And I do
I do
the
all
same
my
thing.
square foot, like,
Yeah.
you were asking about bricks and stuff like that. I will measure the whole wall, and then I'll put whatever the square
the
footage
windows
is,
and-
because I know it's either 6 or 7 bricks, depending on the size per square foot. And then I just highlight it.
Yeah.
250 square feet here. And then I go to the next elevation, and I just do it. Same thing I do for tiles, I do for all that stuff.
We have to do that.
You have to do it.
I learned that from electricians. when they gave me their quote, I looked at their quote and everything was dissected per receptacle, per switch, per light. I was like,
Yeah.
why can't I do that for every department?
Yeah.
And then I started doing that for every department. And that's how I was getting my numbers. But I double, sometimes triple check the numbers to see if I'm still in where I'm supposed to be. And this is where the number is.
But saying that, in a lot of cases now, when you're up into the bigger numbers, like as a GC, as a general contractor, I mean, we're covering the whole thing. So we get your price, his price, this. It's a budget. Like nobody knows on a $3 million job
Exactly.
if we're going to be $3 million. Like no one knows. So it really boils down to the budget and, what are our fees going to be? Because that's all they're worried about. They're worried about, well, what are we paying Jim?
Yeah.
Like, we don't want to pay him.
I'll also say I'm very fortunate to have looked at a few jobs that you sent our way. I'm very appreciative of that. For me, even if I don't get it, going through the practice of just doing that breakdown,
learning,
seeing that job, seeing what that number looks like, eventually when you see that number, you're going to hit that number.
Yep.
And that's the thing. Like for me, when I first started out, like $5,000 was a big number. And then I hit my first 20 and then all of a sudden 60. And then I'm going, okay, that's fine. And then it became 80, 100. And then I had clients that we used to do like 100, 200,000 for a year of business. And I'm going, okay. And then one guy calls me and he's like, the budget for this is 300K. And I went, I'm going to just digress a little because the risk on that is a little bit too high for me at this stage. So I'm just going to be 100% transparent and say, thank you. But and that's the thing is like, because at the end of the day, I like putting my best foot forward. I'll give you a price. I'll do all that. But, it needs to get done at the end of the day. And I just want to be as transparent and integral as I can.
My advice to you would be, if you want to get into those bigger jobs, I mean, I wouldn't start hiring more employees. I would start to working with, like you're doing now.
Yep.
Start working with other guys that are, 1-2 man shows and say, okay, let's partner up on this job.
So I actually learned this concept from you indirectly. And I know I'm giving you a lot of compliments here. And it's not to kiss your ass. It's just the truth. It's how it is. So I thought, like, when I heard of Carrick Hall and I started thinking about that, and you were like, we've had guys for 20 years on our team. And it was at that moment it clicked. And I was like, why are we as tradesmen these days trying to take everybody else down and create like a division in individuals? Because when you look at when you look at Mattamy, these guys operate as teams.
Yeah.
They operate as guys that are a collective together. They understand what that looks like. So again, it goes right back to that first point. If you're going to chop somebody else out, don't. Because you're going to need that guy at some point. And the thing is, you achieve more together. Like if we're going to steamroll this into the education and start using this platform and going forward, it's going to have to it's not going to just be me. It's going to be a collective of people that are going to do it.
Yeah.
And so, I think there's a huge point to be made about that. Another question that I had is, when did you feel the full business was like finally starting to come together? Was it a year? Was it jobs? Was it the profits? Was it you sat in your office one night and you just went, you know what? Holy shit. Like, that looking back at the line kind of thing that we talked about?
I worked for the union for 15 years. So that took me into 88.
I was born then.
88. And so I started I had already started the company. I had already started the Carrick Group actually in 81, just doing small shit, but still working. And then, the late 80s, the 90s, shit hit the fan. Didn't lose anything. I went on my own, so I had
the recession.
So I had to struggle, but I made it through. So in answer to your question, I think it was probably 99, 2000, just when when I was asked to do the show. About 2 years before that, I was just started to, because 95, 96, 97, we just started to go like this, started to grow. Then I finally learned how to take a wage. Not like everybody does it, slam it all, to take out what you need and then figure it out at the end of the year. I actually said, I'll tell you what I wanted to make. I said, I want to make $20,000 a month. I want to take out $20,000 a month. I want to make $250,000 a year. I started doing that.
You told yourself that in 97?
I just said, you know what? I'm slamming all this money in. I'm not, I have no, I'm not
There's no
drawing
rhyme
a
or
wage,
reason.
right? I'm not, I said, I want to draw a wage from my company, even though I own it. So I know where I'm going. So that was my number. I wanted to take $20,000 a month. So I started doing that. I started paying my tax on it. I started doing this. So, so roughly it's $250,000 a year. That's when I knew, okay, I finally done it, figured it out. Then I just stayed like that. Then, and that's why I like to say real renos did not make me.
No.
I was already established. I was already, I had a great business going. Yeah, sure. Did it help in marketing? Yeah, I'm not going to say it didn't. It helped because back then, we needed some marketing. But I was already doing very well for a contractor. In answer to your question, is when I was finally able to say, there I go,
Take a wage.
And took that wage for years.
Good for you.
So then I knew it was there. Now, has there been rough times after that? For sure there was. But again, it's the mentality. You just keep it there. You have to make a wage, even if you got to draw your wage down. And I say this to everybody. I wish I did it right at the beginning. Start paying yourself a wage, regardless of what it is. Every week or every 2 weeks, whatever you want to do, but pay your tax on it. Don't wait till the end of the year. Do it every 2 weeks or do it every month, however you want to do it. But don't wait till the end of the year to get your accountant to figure out what you made, but only show that I only made $10,000 while you're living in a $500,000 house. It doesn't work. It's not going to help you get ahead.
Yeah.
That's my accountant said to me. He goes, Jim, you have to be. It's time you're an outstanding citizen, and you need to start paying.
You got to pay to play.
You got to pay to play. And once that happened, then I could go borrow money to do a house, to do this, do that, do that.
It created a different sort of stance on the company and who you are as a citizen and stuff like that, instead of just being like, but I make all this money, and they're like, yeah, but you don't show it.
Yeah.
and I think that's a completely different podcast. That's something
else. But I mean, there's two different kinds of contractors out there. There's a contractor that makes no money according to the tax man.
Yeah.
And then there's a contractor that makes a lot of money.
I understood that concept that, the first couple of years when I was doing it. But then if I said, like, if I really want to get ahead, I can't do that. Yeah. I have to create a business. I have to draw a wage. I have to pay tax.
The last one that I got is, what would you say if you could narrow it down to 3? What are your 3 passions in life?
Does it have to be construction?
It doesn't have to be construction. What makes, I know this is a really broad question, but like I'm trying to figure out like what makes up the genetic makeup of like Jim Carrick.
I love to create.
You love to create.
Yeah. Right now in my head, I already have my next house visioned in my head how it's going to be. And hopefully with all this, if the market, I wouldn't mind starting this fall. But I already know what I want. I already know how I'm going to finish it inside. So that is my passion. That's, what I love to do. After that, it's probably getting on the hog.
I knew the hog was going to be there somewhere. Yeah.
Or, flying around Mossport if I can.
Do you already have sketches for the house? Do you doodle? Do you like doodle? Do you?
I don't doodle. I'll drive, I'll walk, I'll do whatever. And if I see something,
you'll make a note.
I'll take a note.
Yeah, I do the same thing.
Yeah.
I create a photo album, and all of a sudden I'm like, this is a nice detail. I like this idea. I would change this a tiny bit.
Yeah. The last house I did was kind of out of my comfort zone, a little bit more transitional. I was very traditional, but now I'm starting. I doubt I'll ever go to the modern side.
The full glass,
like
metal.
Contemporary.
No.
I don't see that in.
So I like to put. I like to tie traditional, a little transitional, a little contemporary, all in one. Mm-hmm. Work it that way. But I love using reclaim stuff. Mm. So this one I want to use. If I can, I'd like that. Lack of a better word, that yellow old reclaim brick. like you see downtown. That's, if I can do that, that's what I want to do. And then just with, you know, kind of the New York studio, black windows in it and that kind of thing.
Nice.
Okay.
That's where
What's
my
the
head's
third
at.
one?
Going around the track.
Oh, going around the
going on
track.
the track.
All
Get
has,
in
to
on
do,
the
with,
hot
all
corner.
has to do with speed.
Yeah, it has to be with some speed. That's cool. Anything else there, Marc?
Well, I got a whole section on. We got to wrap this up.
No, we got to wrap it up, man. It's always a pleasure chatting with you, man, and always getting into the inside of these kids, right?
Yeah. No,
they're
it
kids
is
to
fun.
me, too, man. They're like, I could still be their parent. I don't want to be their parent, but I could be their parent. I'm not responsible enough, man. No, thanks so much, Marc, honestly. And
No
so,
problem.
again, you find you on IG at Craigmhor Construction.
Craigmhor Construction. Yeah.
Yeah, and then Jim Carrick, and then Carrick Hall.
Caracol, yeah.
And then myself, Hardcore Reynolds, and I don't know. This was a good talk, man. This was a great talk. We
This
talked
was
a bunch
good,
of stuff,
yeah.
but I love that, Marc. You brought up the stigmas attached to so many levels of construction here.
Stat man.
Stat man. So
That's amazing for a guy your age to have all that.
Oh, when I first met him, he brought up a bunch of stats. He's
that's
the guy
great.
that I told you about where he looked and he found bricklayers were at 57. This is going to be a hole here. The average age of a bricklayer, and
You're not going to be a bricklayer for long.
No.
I could see that.
you can see it.
I'd
There's
say
other
by the time you're 40, you'll be doing something else. You probably, in the business, but you'll be a spokesperson for sure.
got to change
knows?
it. Got to change.
Maybe
it.
you'll be running our association, man.
Who knows? I love my hands. I love my stonework. I just, there's something about like chiseling. I didn't get into this. Masons are, there's a lot. There's brick, block, and stone. There's also refractory and restoration and sculpting. I think that you should be as proficient as you can in everything. I really like stone because you can put a lot of square footage up in a day and it looks really good and it's timeless.
Yeah.
And I'm actually going to be starting to learn how to do lettering and stone carving pretty soon.
Oh, no.
Because
Really? Yeah.
because again, dying, love it. I know I follow a couple guys. They do some really beautiful work. JB Stoneworks. A. Welch. He's located out in Toronto. And I've actually just recently reached out to a guy in Switzerland who does a bunch of Carrera marble stuff. And we're actually chatting right now. And a Scottish mason called the Ginger Mason. She's actually restoring Lincoln Cathedral right now.
Oh,
and
wow.
I've talked to her about the schooling that she does, the books that she reads, and how they sort of view the trades. And that's something that we could actually take and remodel down here. But I think that's just another subject matter. But it would be really interesting to sort of meet these people. Maybe one day I'll get a chance to travel. So,
That's
Sweet.
old school.
Yeah.
Seriously old
Yeah.
school. That's where it all started.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, we got to get out of here, man.
Saturday.
right. Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you.
And we'll see what happens on the next show.
All right.
We'll figure it out.
All right.
Chop, chop.
Ciao.
Ciao.